Welcome to SKNIS Perspectives,
an interactive program of the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service, aired weekly on this radio station.
Today, the Department of Probation and Child Care Services wants to help you to be a better parent.
Parenting is not necessarily just for parents who we may label bad or not doing a very good job. I think parenting is something that you should always be interested in learning more. So it's for everyone.
Deborah Matthew joins us for a candid discussion on ways we can improve the lives of our children and those in the community. I'm Ian Richards. Perspectives begins right now. Parenting is defined by the freedictionary.com as the rearing of a child or children, especially the care, love, and guidance given by a parent. It's an important journey that helps to shape two generations directly, that is, parent and child, and goes a long way in determining ultimately the type of society one lives in. As such, the Department of Probation and Child Care Services has begun classes for parents. Here to tell us more is the director of the department, Deborah Matthew.
You know, parenting, there are no books that come to tell you how we should be parenting. And parenting is not necessarily just for parents who we may label bad or not doing a very good job. I think parenting is something that you should always be interested in learning more. So it's for everyone. And when I say everyone, I mean those who think they're doing a good job can always get refreshers. I think parents learn best from each other. I'm not a parent. I'm always told by my clients, you're not a parent, you don't understand. So I bring a different perspective from theory and practice into teaching them a little bit more about parenting from a different angle. So I respect them seeing me in that way, and I respect the struggles and the challenges that they have as being parent. So parenting classes should be every day. I think every day we're learning as we go along as being parents. So we put these programs together for all parents. We have four areas that we're focusing on right now, which is Sandy Point, Old Road, Sadlers, and Bastia.
But before we get into the classes, let me just go back a bit, because you mentioned that you're not a parent yourself. Do you find that it helps or hurts you in the role that you're playing?
It could be either. It could be both, really. I was parent by my mother, and I know as a child there were things that I wish she didn't do. As an adult, now I see why she did it. So I try to help parents to go back to their own childhood and reflect on that as to how your parent parented you. How did you feel when they did certain things, as to discipline, as to direction, as to decision making? And for some of them, it's difficult to go back there. But for those who can, they're able to see now where their children are, as when they're putting up a defense or trying to be argumentative, and they realize they were like that themselves. So parenting is something that we forget that we were children ourselves. So it's an ongoing challenge, an ongoing struggle. Not being a parent, I can parent. I'm a godmother. I'm an aunt. As long as you're giving children some directions or some guidance or some inspiration, whatever it is you're doing to impart on a child's life, you are parenting. So you don't necessarily have to have given birth to a child to be a parent. We're trying to get back to the community parenting, where your neighbor will be able to discipline you. And I'm not talking about spanking. I think a lot of people think discipline meaning to beat it. And that's not necessarily what it is. Discipline is it's a long spectrum of things you can do as discipline. Your neighbor could have pulled you up. Your neighbor could have just tell you how good a job you've done. So discipline is from both ends, the rewarding and the punishment also.
And so your department now has launched a new initiative, I think it is, parenting classes. Tell us a bit about that.
Well, it's not necessarily new. It's a part of the Child Development Project, which the New Horizon Rehabilitation Facility falls under that same project. The workshop that was done through education for teachers during the summer falls under that. So it's a long range of things that fall under the Child Development Project. This parenting program is just one of those. I want to look at this as an introduction to what the department wants to do as forming a national parenting program. Caribbean Development Bank, we're quite thankful for partnering with the government to make this possible. But as they pull out, when the project is done, we have to be able to carry on with this needed avenue of helping parents to parent. So the national program that we want to roll out eventually is going to spring off of this. So hopefully we can do a good job.
And just to put it into perspective, the Child Development Plan was launched when, and exactly when does the support run out under this plan from the CDB?
The Child Development, I don't know. I wasn't here then. But it's been years. It's been a few years. I think the program is coming to its finalization maybe June or July this year. The rehabilitation center has opened. It's opened in the sense that we are doing training. Training is very much important if we're going to have a therapeutic setting.
Training of the persons?
Training of the staff, sorry. Training of the staff. But we haven't opened to admittance of juveniles. So that is the big bang of completion, if you want to call it, in this project. And this parenting program is just a beginning for us as carrying on this parenting program that needed very much in the community.
Okay, so tell us a bit about the details of the parenting class now.
Well, there's so many topics you can really cover in parenting program. We try to make the group small. We don't want a big hall of parents. I think we lose something when we have too big a group. So we have groups of 15, no more than 20, but we would like to keep it at 15. And some of the topics that we want to cover, and this is not the complete topics, but some of them that we want to cover has to do with parenting skills. Quite a few of the cases that come to my department having to do with abuse and neglect, it's not necessarily that the parents are bad. I think we always want to label people as bad. I think they just need some assistance in doing a better job. So parenting skills is one of the topics definitely that we'll cover. Family relationships. We have so many different kind of families. We have step parents, we have visiting partners, we have divorces, we have custody issues. But the family dynamics is such that the child is in the middle of it. So we need to understand why it's important to have that positive relationship, even though the adult relationship has severed somehow. So the family relationship is something that we definitely want to focus on. Age-appropriate discipline. And it's an age-appropriate discipline. We can't have the same discipline across the board for a 5-year-old as we'll have for a 15-year-old. We need to touch on that in helping parents to understand child development, so you'll be able to discipline the child according to their development. Life skills and decision-making. When you hear decision-making, it's like only adults make decisions for children. And I think it's important that we at least have children have a voice. Not necessarily that they're going to determine what the decision will be, but if you're included in whatever decision you're making, I think it's important. And you as parents knowing how to make decisions together rather than fighting about it.
And it will help the child as well to develop that skill.
Exactly. The first thing I always tell parents, children become what they see. And if they're observing you in how you behave, in how you make decisions, in how you interact, in how you carry yourself, character traits. Because most children want to be like their parents, right? So it definitely is what you see, so you have to be able to project a certain behavior and personality. Managing stress, that is across the board for everybody, not just parents. But managing stress for parents is something that if you have other stresses in your life and you come home to your children, what happens? That stress is going to be heightened. I don't want to say that, but it's heightened somewhat when your children are calling you for this and want your attention. You need to know how to manage that stress. So I can go on, but those are basically some of the topics that we'll be looking at.
Right. So you referred earlier to some of the areas you said. I think it was 4 areas that are being targeted currently.
Mm-hmm. Sandy Point. In Sandy Point, we are targeting particularly teenage parents, I should say. We always forget the fathers. And there are some fathers in this group, which is very good. So teenage parents in Sandy Point, that area has been found to have a high percentage of teenage pregnancy. So we felt it would be good to have that area to just focus on that group. In Old Road, another group, it's just parenting for any parent who wants to come. And in Bastia, we were focusing more on persons on probation parents, juvenile probationers parents. And then in Sadler's, it's basically very similar to Old Road, just parenting that will identify with community development, social development department to have those parenting. Because eventually, parenting for some of our assistance program that we have will become a conditionality in receiving certain services. Not that you're not going to get the service, but we would like you to understand that in receiving this service, we want you to also have this other service.
Such as?
Parenting. parenting classes.
Right, but which service in particular would be affected?
But it's not from my department, so I really don't want to elaborate on it too much. But I know in some other countries in the region, if you get social assistance, as in monetary vouchers or cash vouchers, we would want you to take certain classes. And certain classes, such as parenting classes, will be one of them. And if you're getting uniform assistance, you're getting vouchers, you're getting whatever assistance that we find that the family needs, we want you to understand that parenting should be part of that service.
But you expect pushback. I mean, this is something new. I'm sure there are persons who feel that maybe they're being targeted. Consider that if you're receiving assistance from the social development department, then it is because you are at a disadvantage, more or less, in terms of you may come from an underprivileged background where you're not able to provide as much as you would like for your children. And so they may feel that they're being targeted, and it is just the system, as they would say, putting more conditions on them in order of control.
Well, I think you would look at it that way if we saw parenting program as something bad. I see it as something good. I see it as enhancing, in developing, in growing, in empowering to be a better parent. And we're not saying that you're a bad parent. Like I said in the beginning, we're just helping you to enhance what you already have. Children can be challenging, but they're lovely. Adults can be challenging too. So, I mean, human nature, human behavior, human development is something that is quite interesting. We are not coming to you as if you don't, we're not. If you're in need of services, you will get the services. We're just saying this could be a plus for you to be a part of. So I don't want it to be seen as we are forcing you into something, but we want you to see it as we are providing you with an empowering tool, basically.
That's an important point to remember.
Right.
So you mentioned the 4 areas that were being targeted. Why focus on those particular dynamics? You mentioned that Sandy Point was influenced by a high teenage pregnancy rate. Bastia was more or less for those who have children who may have been in conflict with the law. Why those groups in particular?
It could have been any group. We just picked 4 groups. And like I said, we want to roll out a whole parenting program around the island. So we are going to go through every community. These 4 were just, let's spread it out a little bit around the island at this particular time. But we want to touch on every community in this island. So the parenting program is basically for island-wide. We didn't pick these 4 areas for any particular reason. Now, if it wasn't now, it would have been later. So every community we are hoping to touch on in providing parenting program.
What has been the response like to this parenting program?
Parents are saying that they need it, but it's I don't want to say it's not a priority, but I think there's so many things going on in families' lives. We have it from 5 to 7 in the evening. So you're coming home from work. You know, you're trying to get home, get your kids settled.
How often?
Twice a week, 5 to 7. So it's for parents to squeeze it in, if you want to put it that way. So I'm not saying that they're not open and willing to attend. It's just to make it happen within their long days of so many things to do. So, you know, we're patient in helping them work out how it's best to get to there.
Can you give us a sense as to how many persons are currently enrolled in the program?
In Sandy Point, we have a pretty good turnout. In Old Road, we intended to get 15. I think we may have between 8 or 9. In Bastia, I think we're about 9 or 10 in the area. And in Thaddlers, we started last week, which was a day when there was a big funeral in the area. So we had 4 persons show up. So today, again, we are going to try, and hopefully we have more turnout. But we expected that, you know, it's going to be a bit of a struggle. We didn't advertise it because we didn't really want to be overwhelmed with too many people coming, and we have to turn people away. So that's why we kind of targeted certain persons to some extent, just to keep the numbers down. So we're hoping that it will get better as we continue.
What has some of the feedback been like? You mentioned that there's some of them who admit that they, or who welcome the idea of having these classes.
I'm not at every group, so when the facilitators give me feedback, we have parents who want specific tools to address their children's issues. And I think some of the things that they're asking has to be done more in a counseling session or on an individual family basis. When we present a parenting program for a group, we try to be broad in a sense that we're able to cover something for everybody. We can't focus on an individual. So we see that some parents would probably benefit from maybe more one-on-one or just a family counseling session. The feedback has been good in the sense that it's always good when you have parents in the same room and they start talking and it become like a rap session, which I think has its benefits because they're helping each other. So it becomes a support group somewhere along the way, which is what we really want. We want parents, again, to be supportive of each other when they leave our office. Right. And they go back to their community. They can say, hey, let me go down by Mary and, just EMI, whatever. Maybe she has something to help me. So we want that support to be formed when you leave our training.
And so are there follow-up services for persons who may need one-on-one services?
Well, our counseling unit is overwhelmed. There are only 2 counselors there. I've had the opportunity to have 1 counselor in my office while she waits to be transferred to the New Horizon facility. She has been quite helpful and very much an asset. So I'm hoping that we'll be able to get a counselor for my department because I think a lot of parents need some immediate attention. If I'm to refer them to the counseling unit, it's more of a referral process and it will take a little longer. If I have someone on my staff, I think it's more immediate and I think we'll see more benefits from that end. My staff will be able to give some immediate contact, but in regards to the in-depth counseling and a little more extensive as to family counseling, we need a specialist or someone of that nature.
And talk to us a bit about possibly any timeline, so when the national program could be rolled out, because we have discussed, of course, where you mentioned that by the end of this year, the first half of this year, that this CDB support would end. Any idea as to when you'll be able to roll out?
We're trying to find a parenting module that our facilitators can all use across the board. Right now we have the Mothers Union who had been trained. They have their own parenting module and their facilitators are the ones who are helping with this program. And we have another group which is the Parenting Partners module. We're trying to find the one that best fit us as a culture. I'm not saying neither one of those would do, but we have to find one where it addresses our needs. So it's just trying to find that module.
And if someone listening to this may be interested in accessing the services that your office may offer. Of course, we mentioned that you're trying to keep the classes small, and of course everyone understands that. But for someone who wants to find out a bit more information on it, how can they do so?
Well, you can call the Department of Probation and Child Protection Services at 467-1379 or 467-1311, and we'll be able to assist you. And parenting classes, if I have 10 persons call me and say that they're interested, I can put a class together just for that. We want to provide the service for need. And if I don't want to say to someone, okay, next month we have another class. If I see that there are 10 persons right now who really want to be a part of something, I'm willing to put that together.
Ms. Matthew, thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Director of Probation and Childcare Services, Deborah Matthew. Before we leave, here's a quick reminder to visit our Facebook page and YouTube channel. It features a link to important government websites and, of course, has interesting articles and videos produced by our department. I'm Ian Richards. Thank you very much for joining us this week.
We're pleased that you joined us for this edition of SKNIS Perspectives. Join us every week at this same time on this radio station.
This program is produced by the St. Kitts and Nevis Information Service.